was made from the roommate's call, or phone, excuse me, and we're not going to divulge who made that call.
So they came here together. They eventually get into the same apartment together.
Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
And I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I know I talk about myself a lot, but like, what would you guys do in my situation?
And in the end, they died together.
Newly revealed text messages from the night those four beautiful University of Idaho students were murdered. The chilling words from the surviving housemates. This as we're inching closer to the trial of Brian Kohberger. And new allegations against embattled pastor John Paul Miller. The widower of Micah Miller, cleared in her death, but now being accused of assaulting underage girls. Also this hour, we're being a voice for victims in the case of Madeline Soto. There's a huge document dump revealing sickening evidence against alleged predator and her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. Plus, infamous true crime defendants are facing off. Gypsy Rose Blanchard now calling out Casey Anthony. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. TGIF, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court to end the work week? We have a tremendous show planned, so let's get started. Grab that coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. We should feel safest in our own home. The home is sacrosanct. In the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, 4 students sleeping inside of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, had their privacy violated in the worst imaginable way. Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were slaughtered by a male intruder. Some bold, brazen, evil killer came into their sacrosanct place to do them harm. And for the 2 housemates who were left unharmed, their text messages are showing us just how terrified they were. They weren't sure what was happening, but they were scared to death knowing that a masked man was inside of their home. And their housemates weren't responding to their calls or their texts. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk were messaging each other saying things like, "No one is answering. I'm freaking out right now. I'm not kidding. I'm so freaked out. So am I. Come to my room. Run." It is eerie seeing their messages. But I tell you what, nothing compares to the horror that they felt when they learned their friends weren't responding because they were murdered. They live with that horror every day of their lives, and sadly, so does everyone who loved Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan so dearly. So this morning, I say, may they all continue to heal. And may that evil intruder who took their lives receive the harshest punishment that the law allows. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
I got pulled in because I don't know why I got pulled in, but I got pulled in. Like a dummy, I went with him. He told me, I won't let anything happen to you. You're not from here. No one's looking for you. And that's what I've been told.
Oh, the hitman with the heart of gold, right? In California, we've got the state expected to rest its case today in the celebrity hairstylist murder trial. Court's going to start up in that one at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. In Iowa, we've got the Visions of Violence murder trial for Christopher B. Hall. That one continues at 10 a.m. Eastern. And in New Mexico, the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office is going to be holding a press conference at 4 p.m. Eastern today to update everyone on the death investigation of actor Gene Hackman and his wife and their dog. Now to our top story. A South Carolina pastor now facing 2 lawsuits accusing him of sexually assaulting underage girls. You might remember Pastor John Paul Miller after his estranged wife Micah Miller died by suicide last year.
I had to keep my circle really small for the past couple weeks just because I'm going through a lot and it's hard and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God has put in my life to deal with, and I don't want to bring a lot of people into it.
So many questions still around Micah's death. And John Paul has found himself investigated by the FBI, but to be clear, he's never been charged with his 30-year-old beautiful wife's death. Well, now, 2 different women are coming forward alleging that the pastor sexually assaulted them years before while he was working as a teacher and a pastor at the church that his father founded. The newest suit was filed by an anonymous woman who says that John Paul attacked her back in 1999 when she was just 15 and a student at the school. According to the suit, it says in part the plaintiff walked into a nightmare. Cathedral Hall Academy was not a school, it was a trap. Which should have been a place of learning, became a place of control, of fear, and of unchecked abuse. Well, when the young woman was left alone with him, John Paul allegedly gave her a hug and moved his hands down her back, past her waist, and underneath her clothing, touching her bare butt, the suit says. Now, John Paul, to be clear, has not been criminally charged for any of these allegations of sexual misconduct. These are being done in civil court. We do remember when he was arrested back in November for battery. That landed him in criminal court, and that was after an alleged confrontation near his church. I have 2 great guests standing by to dig into these new lawsuits. I want to welcome them in now. The attorney representing Micah Miller's sister, Regina Ward, is back on the program with us, and want to welcome in award-winning journalist and the co-host of the True Sunlight and Cup of Justice podcast, Liz Farrell. Good morning to you both. I'm so happy to have you both here. Let's dig in on these lawsuits if we can. Regina, I want to start with you, tapping into your legal expertise. How much teeth do you think these 2 suits have?
Yes, well, just like with any type of lawsuit, there's going to be strengths and weaknesses. And one of the first weaknesses that would have been approached by any defense attorney is the statute of limitations with regard to bringing the suit. But Attorney Hood, who authored the lawsuits, just stopped that dead in its tracks, I feel like, by citing what's referred to as repressed memories, which allows for the statute of limitations to be told until the victim, the memory resurfaces. Yes,
and I'm so glad you brought that up. This is such an important point, Regina. Thank you. I want to show everyone a little excerpt we pulled from the suit. And we know that the allegation is that there was a rape back in 1998. She's saying she went to a church service with her grandparents. She alleges John Paul forced her out of the building into a truck where he assaulted her. And then 20 years later, the same woman was in Myrtle Beach out with a friend. They see John Paul, and she said that's when he went to hug her, shoved his hands down her pants, touching her genitals without her consent. That repressed memory, as you noted, Regina, is what she says brought it all back so many years later. Liz Farrell, you wrote a brilliant article on this for Luna Shark Media. Talk to us, please, about the things that you found throughout your investigation of this guy.
I could talk for hours about the investigation into this guy, and not only him, but his father as well. We're starting to realize the generational inheritance here that John Paul Miller got from his father, who is also a pastor. So I would say the thing that I'm learning most, though, is that the amount of betrayal that has happened, not just to the victims, but their families, to the church members who have invested a lot of time, faith, energy, money into both of these men, it's very sad.
You're so right. You're so right, Liz. And I'm curious if I was just seeing some reporting and some allegations. I understand that there are court records filed by, it would be John Paul's father's ex-wife and also John Paul's ex-wife that I understand paint a picture of John Paul being abused by his dad. Liz, have you found that to be correct?
So we can only go by what's in the court documents, and we have seen texts where he has referenced that abuse, but that's all we know about it.
Yeah, so really no confirmation. I just wondered because sometimes, not always, but sometimes people who are abused then perpetuate that abuse. And Regina, it seems to me with this guy, I'm seeing some themes thematically kind of woven through, his life and these different allegations. And I'm just seeing themes of fear, of power and control, people that just seem scared to death to talk or go against this guy. What have you found, Regina, since you've been representing Micah's sister?
Yes, and I just want to correct the record too. I represented Micah during her divorce action, which was actually a separate maintenance and support. And then when she passed away, I represented the family through navigating through the probate as well as the civil action. There has been a common theme. It's gone back for a long time. What it really boils down to is something that I'm really adamant about, and that is getting coercive control legislation enacted. He has displayed many aspects of what is the epitome of coercive control and the type of emotional abuse that occurs in a coercive control situation. Mm-hmm. And can I just tell you, today is a very important today. Today would have been Micah's 31st birthday. So today's a somber day for her family, very much so.
Oh, Regina, thank you for mentioning that. We certainly want to remember Micah here. We're not forgetting about her. We're going to keep this conversation going. I want to play for you both that 911 call that she made, essentially saying that she was about to commit suicide.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Oh my gosh. Liz, I want to go back to you. What does it seem that Micah was trying to do there? Was this a cry for help? Kind of describe for us where you think she was, where her head was, what she might have been feeling, perhaps at the hands of her husband.
I would say it was the end of the line for her. She had reached out to the police many, many times over the previous few months, trying to get some sort of help with John Paul's alleged stalking, his relentless pursuit of her. And I just think at that moment, she wanted to make sure that her body went to her family and not him. That's honestly what I think about it. I think that she just wanted his control, his alleged control over her to end. And that probably brought her some peace. And I think we need to not look past the fact that that phone call is what rings heavy in the ears of the Jane Does, because perhaps had they spoken up earlier, and this is to their mind, they carry this guilt that they could have saved Micah.
That's a great point, Liz. You know, oftentimes victims blame themselves. We know that when they shouldn't, but they feel shame, they feel guilt, they feel afraid to speak up. Regina, tell me, when you were representing Micah, were you getting a picture that her relationship with John Paul had been an abusive one?
Absolutely. The things that she shared with me exactly mimic a video that she put out that he had done terrible, and I mean terrible things to her. And I actually wanted to, I'd offered up, I said, you need to pursue a divorce on the grounds of adultery and physical cruelty. But she was just at a place that she wanted to be done with him. She didn't want scorched earth tactics. She also was very concerned about the church itself. She didn't want the church to, the man doesn't represent the church, as she would say, the church is the people. And so she was very concerned about that. She didn't want to go through a contested divorce. There had been a divorce filing previously by her that was dismissed, one by him that was dismissed. And she had finally gotten to this place where she was reconciling that she was, ready to go through this separation period and then a divorce. And she had this grand plan that she just beamed when she spoke about it, of being, part of a mission. She felt like she had found her calling. So, for me to hear that call, lots of things go through my mind there. It's kind of, unbelievable to me. But at any rate, we are where we are. Her life and this, tragedy that's happened to her has brought, social attention to this problem that's not only just in a relationship, but also obviously is happening in the church. And it's been really sad on.
Yeah, it's horrible.
What's
A beautiful life gone far too soon. We're going to continue talking
ma'am.
about this case. We're not done with this one. 31 years old, Micah Miller would have been today had she not died the way that she did. Regina Ward, Liz Farrell, thank you both for the great insight. Liz, keep up the great reporting work. And Regina, I know you've been a tremendous advocate for the family. Let us know if any developments occur in the next couple weeks, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you kindly. Coming up next here on Opening Statements.
I want to let you know you're not free to leave. You're being detained, okay? Do you want to know what you're being detained for? Capital sexual battery and possession of child pornography.
Disturbing new evidence revealed against the man accused of murdering his girlfriend's 13-year-old daughter, Madeline Soto. And a convicted killer is speaking out after Casey Anthony launches her legal advocacy career.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan with the latest and breaking true crime stories.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates, tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
This stuff about playing a race card is preposterous.
The racial division was so great that people saw the facts differently.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? New episode Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
Now, for what's trending in true crime, a well-known convicted killer is coming at Casey Anthony for launching her career as a legal advocate.
I am a legal advocate. I am a researcher. I've been in the legal field since 2011. And in this capacity, I feel that it's necessary, if I'm going to continue to operate appropriately as a legal advocate, that I start to advocate for myself and also advocate for my daughter. I'm doing this both personally for me, but in a professional capacity. My goal is to continue to help give a voice to people, to give people tools and resources that they can utilize so they actually know where they can turn to.
None other than Gypsy Rose says that Casey should not be giving legal advice to anyone, let alone making them pay for it. You'll recall Gypsy Rose served 7 years in prison for her role in the 2015 murder of her own mother. But she's apparently offering advice to Luigi Mangione. You know him, the man accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO. And Gypsy Rose is also offering some advice to the Menendez brothers as well. So the question we're asking our power panel, is Gypsy right to call out Casey? Let's bring in our guests. With me this morning, Dr. Debbie Goodman, Jennifer Coffenduffer, and Joe Tamburino. Good morning to you all. Okay, Dr. Debbie, what do you say?
Wow, Julie, I don't know whether to laugh or cry at this cast of characters here. Self-proclaimed professionalism and expertise. I mean, I think based on our policies and procedures of guests that you have on the program and those of us in the field with the educational background, practitioner-based experience, I'm not sure how one can simply proclaim to be a legal advocate. And it's just very, confusing to me how and why that's the crown these individuals want to wear, when those of us who really do the deep dive into their backgrounds know the heinous conduct displayed. So I almost think it's laughable.
Right, Dr. Debbie. They both don't have a great track record. Jen Coffenduffer, your thoughts on this?
Well, good morning. This is my thought. Money, money, money. You know, right now, Gypsy Rose is worth about $3 million. And that's because of what she does on social media. And Casey Anthony is just looking at getting right aboard that gravy train and riding it. If you look at what she says, everything is I and me, and I was thrust into this, and this has been asked of me or put upon me. It's all baloney. It's about the dollar bill.
Oh, I love that analysis, Jen. Thank you. Joe Tamburino, what do you think? Is Gypsy right to call out Casey?
Yeah, she's absolutely right. I mean, it's too bad it's coming from that kind of a source, but she's absolutely right. And I agree with Jennifer. This is all about the money. And, certain cases, people should just go away. In the Casey Anthony case, I mean, we all knew what happened back with Kaylee's death in 2008. And at this point in time, she should just stay in the background. I don't see a reason why she's doing this other than the money.
Right, Joe. Great points. And that's been the public sentiment. Go away, Casey, is what so many people are saying. Tanya writes, quote, "You had a chance to speak out when your daughter went missing, but instead you chose tattoos, bars, and wet T-shirt contests." And goes on to say that, Casey, your narcissism still shines through 16 years later. And Casey responded to her critics, telling them, quote, she's not afraid of them. Says, "You've tried to silence me for years. I chose to live a private life. I still will. I still spoke out. I still have fought for my daughter, Kaylee, and that she'll continue that fight." So we also want to know, how long do we think Casey's legal advocacy career is going to last? Dr. Debbie, back to you.
I would say short-lived, Julie. It's the topic of the moment, and I agree with Joe. This should just be somebody who now leads a humble, low-key life rather than, and I think it does speak to the grandiosity and the narcissism that a lot of these individuals have. They're in the spotlight and they become infamous, and then they think, okay, I can reinvent myself and I still want the spotlight and all eyes on me. And yes, of course, the monetary aspect, I think, is at the forefront, but I also believe there's this attention grab and wanting to be in the spotlight, which is the motivation.
For sure. Dr. Debbie, thank you. So we see most of the comments are very, very, very negative. We did find one positive one. I want to share it in fairness to Ms. Anthony. This person writes, "I created a Substack account to connect with you. I've been judged and slandered for things I didn't do. If this is your calling, I'm here with you, not against you, Casey." Aw. Jen Coffindaffer, what do you think about how America united to say, Casey Anthony, go have a seat somewhere with your legal advocacy nonsense now?
Well, I think that side of things is great. But if you look, she had tens of thousands of followers within one day, and that number just keeps growing. And we are in a very odd time where we're celebrating people who shoot people in the back for reasons that they find important. We find that, we're celebrating people who have murdered people. It's like nothing I've ever seen. And so that's the part of the population that is really concerning.
Yes, Jen. Joe Tamburino, you're going to love this comment from Jessica we found. I want to read it to you. She said to Casey, "So do you realize it's illegal to give legal advice without being a lawyer? Where did you get your bar done, through Florida or Tennessee? Because I have yet to see where you're a lawyer or where you've passed the bar." Joe, I know you like that one.
Absolutely. Jessica is completely right. And, I think this whole thing is going to be short-lived, too. And additionally, somebody is going to make a complaint, whether to law enforcement or the Florida State Bar or somewhere, that she is practicing law without a license. So she could have further legal troubles on this. But I also agree with the comment that this is just such a strange time. I don't understand this. I've been practicing law since 1989, and you get these cases where people do, they're accused of horrific things, and the next thing you know, they have a Twitter following. That just never was the case. You couldn't even think of that 10 years ago. So it is just a strange time.
Joe, you're so right. That's the perfect point to end this segment on. It really is, because I cringe when I hear people telling me like they're hoping the Menendez brothers get out because they feel so sorry for them and they follow updates on them, and Luigi Mangione and his fan base. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're right, Joe. It is stunning. It is stunning, to see from where we've come to where we've gone here. And we've got to go to a break, but you're all staying with us. Coming up next here on Opening Statements, we're going to be breaking down some Sickening, and I mean sickening evidence just revealed in the case against accused killer Stephen Stearns. Plus, a bombshell motion from special prosecutor Hank Brennan exposing the relationship between Turtleboy and Karen Read. We're talking about how it can tip the scales at her trial.
We have a very strong bond. But, I'm the person she goes to when her mom gets in a fight with her and she needs someone to comfort her. And I'm that person for her, This girl knows nothing but love here in this house.
This morning, we're being a voice for victims as we focus on the murder of Madeline Soto, as new documents are revealing sickening information connecting her to her alleged killer, her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. The beautiful 13-year-old was reported missing last February after not showing up for school. Days later, her body was found dumped in a wooded area miles away from her home, the home that she shared with her mom and this man, Stephen Stearns. Now, investigators are sharing a glimpse at the evidence collected against this guy. The evidence includes pictures and videos collected on several different dates over the course of 2 years' time. When police searched the contents of Stearns' Google Drive, they found one folder dedicated to Madeline that contained over 1,700 files. Video of a prepubescent female resembling who would have been, and this is someone redacted, months old, laying next to Stearns, watching cartoons. Stearns asks her to put his penis in her mouth as he counts for 3 seconds, tells her she can't play with the phone unless she does it. Stearns is accused of first-degree murder, facing a slew of sex crimes charges as well, and on the homicide case, Florida prosecutors are pursuing the death penalty. Let's talk about this newly revealed evidence against him. I want to come through it with criminology expert professor at St. Thomas University and author Dr. Debbie Goodman. Dr. Debbie, I want to show you a photo taken of Stephen Stearns' hands. The hands were seen with what police believe are some scratches on them. This was shortly after his arrest. We wonder, could it perhaps show that maybe Madeline put up a fight? Who knows? Talk to us, please, about what you see that may have gone on in this household in terms of the relationship that developed between Mr. Stearns and the victim.
Certainly. Good morning, Julie. And just what a heinous, horrible, sickening case we have here with not only sexual battery, assault, rape, which ultimately led to murder. I think without a doubt, seeing the hands, and I'm sorry, I have tears in my eyes here. It's a Florida case. I'm in Florida. I know the case well. And I do think she would have put up the fight, and she was a brave little girl, I'm sure. And probably what led to her death, Julie, is she may have even stated that she wanted to tell, on him and reveal what was going on. But when we have 60 counts of sexual abuse, strangulation, and this is going on for years, we can only imagine the depraved mind of this individual grooming her. And this is what happens, Julie, as we know. We don't even have a good handle, unfortunately, on the data analytics of this. I check the data every day on so many crimes, but when we look at child victimization, sexual exploitation, I think the estimates that we know at or near 500,000 children fall victim to this each year. But I think those numbers, Julie, are far higher than that, because it's what we call in criminology hidden crimes. These are the crimes that children feel afraid and ashamed and humiliated and degraded, and they're afraid, so they don't say anything. But absolutely deplorable, and I hope the Florida justice system will proceed in the correct way of what they're seeking, the death penalty.
Yes, yes, Dr. Debbie, I love what you hit on there. They're crimes of secrecy, which makes them, I think in many instances even scarier than crimes that are blatantly out in the open. You see what's going on. It's there for your eyes to see. In secret, you don't know what kind of harm someone is enduring, as you noted. I have a clip for you from Madeline's mother, Jennifer Soto, who has not been charged. For a while, I thought she might be. But take a listen to what she said to police about fearing the situation could be a Woody Allen situation with her daughter and her boyfriend.
I've always told him that my biggest fear is that this would turn into a Woody Allen situation where the stepdaughter or the dad grooms the child and the child then turns 18 and ends up running away with him. I told him that was my biggest fear and I don't ever want that happening. You can't do that to me.
Why would you say that to him?
Because I never trusted. I grew up being told never trust a man. My mom put that in my body, never trust a man.
And yet, Dr. Debbie, she let her man sleep in the bed with her daughter. Dr. Debbie, what do you think's going on with this mother? Where is her head in all this?
I agree with you, Julie. I think parental liability on this case, I just cannot believe that this mother allows her daughter to sleep in the bed with the boyfriend. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Who does that? As parents, we love our children unconditionally. We protect them. We would take the bullet for them to protect their lives. So I don't believe this mother. I really don't, that it's like bringing the lamb into the lion's den and thinking, okay, all will be well. Absolutely not. I think this mother, with the negligence and the recklessness, was a participant as well, and potentially involuntary manslaughter for her, like we saw with the Ethan Crumley case. But
right.
How sad, Julie, how tragic of what little Maddie's life must have been like for years, and living in this terror. Again, I feel like these are crimes of terror when our children, so innocent, are now victimized by people they know. And that is statistically accurate, Julie, as you know, that many of the children who are victims of rape, molestation, ultimately death, are facing this by the hands of those they know.
Mm-hmm. You're so right, Dr. Debbie. And and because of that attachment, right? Because oftentimes these are people they love. These are people that they wouldn't think would want to hurt them, right? That's where the struggle begins, isn't it? Where somebody is afraid to report for fear of getting in trouble or doing wrong to someone who, in all actuality, has done them wrong.
Right. But the innocent mind is thinking, believe it or not, even in those terrible circumstances of, oh, well, this is my mom's boyfriend. He may have ice cream with me. We read books together. We watch cartoons. So in part, it's that rationalization that both children and adults may have, and yet they don't want to get the other one in trouble. And also it's that processing of they themselves, will they get in trouble? Will mom believe me? What happens next? Do I get removed from my own household? So there's so much turmoil and just troubling thoughts of a daily existence, not knowing when and if one is being victimized again and again. But wow, Julie, I really hope that this case gets resolved in the manner of justice for Maddie, which would result in the highest penalty for Stefan Stearns.
Yes, beautifully said. Dr. Debbie Goodman, thank you for everything this morning. And let's remember to keep victim Madeline Soto at the forefront of this story. Madeline had just celebrated her 13th birthday days before she disappeared. And we're going to continue honoring her on this program by following her case and the fight for justice. We'll be right back.
An Iowa man is found unconscious after crashing his car. He asked police to check on his girlfriend, recalling flashes of violence. Now he's on trial for her brutal murder.
The Visions of Violence murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
This stuff about playing a race card is preposterous.
The racial division was so great that people saw the facts differently.
Trial and Error. Why did OJ win? New episode Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific, only on Court TV.
Because not one, but two doctors, trained pathologists, who have looked at thousands of autopsy photos and testified in thousands of cases, all agree those are dog bites on Sean Flanagan.
Now for what's tipping the scales of justice in the case against defendant Karen Read, a brand new bombshell motion filed by Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan. The motion argues that Karen Read showed consciousness of guilt for killing John O'Keefe by having Turtleboy intimidate case witnesses. You may recall Brennan exposing the relationship Read and Turtleboy have at last month's hearing. Take a listen.
There is a history, a symbiotic relationship between Miss Read and Mr. Kearney. There is a history of documented evidence showing the sharing of discovery between the parties. And being in a position of representing two different defendants who are not co-defendants, being in that position is going to be a difficult task to manage. And I am worried, and I have good reason to be worried, about the privacy of our protected material.
The motion says in part a clear inference can be made that the parties directly encouraged Mr. Kearney to continue personal attacks on witnesses and their family members, including juvenile children, with the sole purpose to embarrass, intimidate, harass, and deter these individuals from testifying. Mr. Kearney publicly stated that the motivation of his actions was to prevent this case from ever going to trial. Wow. So here's what Hank Brennan is asking the court to do, asking the court to order the prosecutor's office, the special prosecutor on Turtleboy's case, to send him the extraction and data reports from the two cell phones of Turtleboy's that were seized and searched. And then in the motion, Brennan says he plans to file what's called a motion in limine to ask the court to be able to use that evidence to show Karen Read's consciousness of guilt at her retrial. So let's talk about how this will tip the scales if it happens. I want to bring back in Jennifer Coffendaffer and Joe Tamburino. Jen, I know you were reading through this motion carefully yesterday and have a lot to say about it. A couple highlights. The allegation is that Karen Read used an intermediary between Turtleboy, that she communicated with this intermediary, Hank Brennan says, on the Signal app, this encrypted app, so everybody thought no one would see what it says, and that this intermediary shared witness information, home addresses, grand jury minutes, autopsy photos, and generally every piece of evidence the Commonwealth provided to defense counsel onto Mr. Kearney. Your thoughts?
Well, good morning, Julie. You know, this case has certainly been muddled with so much inappropriate action. And this is really the highlight of all of that. This points out this symbiotic relationship. And the main thing is, Julie, why? Why did she feel like she needed to give up all her discovery to Mr. Kearney? Why did she believe that they needed to be intimidated, these witnesses? Why? It was because she knew that they could provide information that would implicate her. And at the heart and soul of this situation is her doing this and why.
Exactly, Jen. And Hank Brennan came up with this brilliant argument of why, saying that it demonstrates consciousness of guilt. Why the need to have people harassed and attacked so brutally? Why? These call details, we understand, not only were the communications via the Signal app, but apparently there were also phone calls, 189 of them between Turtleboy and Karen Read. They talked for over 40 hours. And the motion notes that Turtleboy had calls with her attorneys, Alan Jackson and David Unetti, 29 times. And in some of these communications that were shared, Karen Read would tell Turtleboy, this is urgent, or make it clear in his publishing on his platform that the information didn't come from us. So it was kind of a hiding behind Turtleboy is what's being alleged, making it seem like he's doing this independent journalism for some righteous cause. And here Hank Brennan says it's consciousness of guilt in the homicide. Joe Tamburino, what do you say?
Well, I think Mr. Brennan's motion is very good. And if he could connect the dots forensically, meaning that he could connect that they actually did share this information, I think that it has legs. What it could also do, and this is problematic for the defense attorneys, is create a conflict. Because if it really connects all these dots, if it really shows that, she was in cahoots with Turtleboy, and Turtleboy, if they could really prove that he's talking with her attorneys, and remember, her attorneys have no privilege of communication with Turtleboy. They have it with their client, of course, but Turtleboy potentially could be a witness. And so if that's the case, then the state, Mr. Brennan, can ask that these attorneys be removed from the case because they've made themselves witnesses. So I think Mr. Brennan's motion is good, and we'll see where it goes, because I think this could be the real bombshell.
Joe, I'm so with you. And you hit on something so key when you were talking about the conflicts and all that. I'm looking at a Veerment 14 in the affidavit. It says, Hank Brennan writes, it's been represented to this court, Judge Cannoni, that defense counsel who represents Turtleboy said that, quote, an implicit, long-term implicit mutual assistance defense agreement exists between counsel for Mr. Kearney and counsel for the defendant. So I mean, that stuns me that Turtleboy's counsel, Timothy Bradle, would make that representation to the court. Wow. Agent Coffindaffer, this mutual assistance agreement, it seems to me that this has been out there on social media, but in the first trial, it never really made it into the courtroom, did it? Not until Hank Brennan in round 2 brought down the house of cards at that motion hearing a month ago.
Julie, you're exactly right. And actually, all of this information, most of us have known that follow the case closely for months, really for a year, in and around the time of the first trial. And so this isn't new to us, but what is new is that they are taking the legal steps that we all wondered why they didn't take them in the first trial. And further, Julie, and I would love to get Mr. Tamburino's reaction to this. I think if they were all involved in this witness tampering, I mean, potentially Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Jackson could have some culpability if they were part of a conspiracy to intimidate the witnesses in the Karen Read trial. I just don't know how you get off the hook not being involved in that sort of action. When you're saying Karen Read was, if the attorneys weren't, how can they not be legally culpable?
Excellent point. Joe, if it can be shown that they fed him anything for purposes of using it to harass witnesses, can they be sanctioned, even held criminally liable?
Yes, and that's what, and I agree. I agree with Jennifer. I mean, what's going to happen here is if Mr. Brennan's motion has legs, and it seems like it does, this is going to basically be, a cornucopia of information. And if they could connect these dots between all of these parties, Mr. Brennan could try to get the 2 defense counsel removed, as well as, and this is going to be the difficult one, to try to get information about the alleged witness conspiracy. Now, the defense is going to say, and rightfully so in some situations, that a lot of this is privileged communication. But if not, it's not privileged if a crime was committed.
Excellent points. We've got to leave it there for time's sake, but we'll continue following this case. Agent Coffindaffer, we have to let you go. Thank you so much for everything this morning. Check out Jen's show, Break the Case. Joe Tamburino's coming along with us as we get ready for Court TV Live, and we're going together to California for the celebrity hairstylist murder trial.